here at TexasSky.com, and today we are going to make a patriotic wreath. This is going to be a wreath that can be used for Memorial Day, for 4th of July, or if you're like us who are just super proud Americans, any day of the year is a perfect time for this wreath. I'm going to be doing the ruffle method. You know, over the course of the last several years, as I've made every style of wreath that I know is available, this is my absolute favorite type of wreath to make. It's the simplest. I think it has a nice impact. It looks great. What I'm going to be using today, and I've already done pre-cutting, so I'm not going to bore y'all with everything where I'm actually doing the process. I'm going to show you, but I didn't want you to have to be bored with me cutting everything. What we're using today is the 10-inch poly burlap deco mesh. It's a little bit thicker than the regular deco mesh. It's got a totally different texture to it. I love how it's really full though when you make your ruffles, and the coverage is really good. I'm using a red, white, and a blue, and then I'm also using a burlap mesh. Now this isn't poly burlap. Here it is. It's more of a regular burlap mesh, and you can see how the edge is kind of tattered like a regular burlap because it's that fabric. I cut these last, and we're using a 24-inch work wreath, which of course, as I've told you before, it's kind of confusing when you're purchasing these. The wreath diameter itself is not 24 inches, it's about 15 inches. But when you spread out your ties, your twist ties, I believe that comes out to about 21 inches across. It's always confusing to me the way they do that, but yeah, it's the work wreath, and the work wreath has a little bit fatter tinsel ties. The pencil wreath, they're skinnier, and I like these. It becomes a part of your wreath. It's decorative. I actually used a red one. I didn't have an extra red one to show you the sample of what we're doing, but and then of course I got some sort of patriotic ribbon. This particular ribbon is 2.5 inches wide, I believe. Yes, it's 2.5 inches wide. I've got some 2.5 inch wide red striped, it kind of has that burlap color. So this wreath has got a little bit of a rustic edge to it, which I really love. That's super popular these days. I've got all kinds of little embellishments to put on the wreath. Honestly, I just picked these up at Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of these, how much of these I'm going to use. And then I also got a bigger thing that's hooked on this other thing, never mind that, to go in the center of the wreath. To me, wreaths, I just like to have a big focal point in the middle of the wreaths that I make, or to the side, whatever you want to do, but just something kind of meaty that goes into it. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do, and we've talked about this before, I have a cutting mat on my craft table. It's great because my craft table is really, it's a pretty table, and I would not want to damage it. So I've got a large kind of a quilt cutting mat, and then I have a smaller mat on top of that that I like to cut on. You can get these even smaller than this if you don't have a dedicated workspace. You can put this on your kitchen table or your countertops so you don't damage it. It works out great. I use a rotary cutter, and I always like to tell you what I use. This one is Olfa, O-L-F-A, 4.5 millimeter. I'm not really sure. You know, I guess it's just the width of the blade. That width works really good for what we're doing here. And I like to do my cuts. Now, when you're doing the ruffle wreath is just your 10-inch deco mesh or poly burlap mesh, whatever you're using, cut into 10-inch sections. And so to do that, I just kind of stack mine up. This is the great part about this, because it goes so quickly. When you're doing this, I just kind of stack them all up, and I use something to weight down the end because it wants to curl up. The closer to the end of your rolls that you get, the more it's going to want to curl up. But I do this now. You have to do a little bit of math. there are 18 twist ties on one of these wreaths. And I like to put 2 ruffles per twist. And so that equals 36. Now, if I were just using 3 colors, I would need to make 13 cuts because that would be 36 double ruffles in each thing. Since I did decide to throw this burlap in, I went ahead and cut 13 of these. And so they're going to be thrown into the wreath. We're going to see how that goes. But as far as the cuts that you're going to make, I just measure out. I'm starting out on 28 here. Roll it out to 18, so it's going to be a 10-inch section. And it's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be exactly straight. You don't need to put a straight edge down. The great thing about these cutting mats is there's a ruler. So I can see here where 19 is, there's a straight line. Actually, it's going to be 18 because I want 10 inches. So you can see I'm not going to stress out about it being perfect. It doesn't matter. And then you've got your 3 cuts right there. So that's all I'm going to do as far as the cutting. I know that you guys can see exactly what I did there and how simple it is. But that's how you get your sections. And so what you would do, and I'm just going to show you as a sample on this white wreath. I start on the outer ring. No particular reason why. It's just how I prefer to do it. Kind of get your twist ties out of the way. And start on the outer ring, and then you're going to take whatever color you want to start with. It doesn't matter. I'm going to start with white in this case. Make sure you guys can see this. You got a good shot of this, Mean Man? Put it flat to your surface. Go to the center, start in the back, and you're just going to pinch that center together and come up to where it looks like it's like a bow tie, it's like a butterfly. And you'll see these strings. Now, when you do these wreaths, you are going to have strings that you're going to need to trim off. It holds up really well once you get all of your little strings trimmed off. If this is something that's going to bother you, I don't know that I would, well, really almost any deco mesh wreath, because once you cut them, you're going to have some strings that you'll need to be aware of. But if you can trim them off, and it looks gorgeous. So I'm going to start with 1 twist, and I've got it opened up, and I'm just going to set that pinched part into the twist, and I'm just going to kind of go around 1 time because I'm not done. I don't want to twist it off real tight because I still have things I'm going to put in there. And then you would come to your next twist, and this is really how I do it. It helps me to keep the colors alternating. You could go right back over that with the next color if you want to, but to me it would be just too confusing by the time I got to the end. And you'll see what I'm saying here. I'm going to go ahead and take my next 10-inch square, and really it is a square, it's 10 inches by 10 inches. And I'm going to gather it up. Now, I have seen some people go as much as 15 inches on these. It makes your gather a little bit tighter. But your deco mesh is not going to go very far if you do that. Deco mesh roll, I believe, is 10 feet. If you start making these really long, it's going to take a lot of deco mesh to be able to do this. 10 inches works out just fine as far as the fullness goes. So I'm going to put this in the next twist and just give it like a twist and a half maybe. And you see, I've got 2 twists. Then I'm going to come to the next and go so forth and so on. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you this. Okay, here's the next one. Same thing. It's going to come in. You're going to stick it in to your twist. You're going to give it about a twist and a half. So here's how everything starts, and you're going to alternate all the way around. Try to make it to where you don't have the same color on top as the color underneath. The underneath color doesn't matter quite so much, and it's hard to do when you're using these different colors. Everything doesn't come out even every time, and it's okay. Don't stress about that. You can make it look right. I'm going to set this down and get to the wreath that I have already done most of the work on. On this particular wreath, I've already gone around the outer edge. I've got 2 ruffles in each twist on the outer edge. Now the inner edge, I've done 1 ruffle. And so now I'm gonna start the top, and this will be what's seen. And so I wanna be careful, so I'm gonna take my red, white, and blue sections here, and where I want to start, I'm gonna start with red. And so I don't see, there's no red in this area. So I'm gonna start right here, so I can just keep it to where you're not overwhelmed with one particular color. And I'll show you how easily this goes on a twist that already has something in it. Here's a white ruffle, and I'm gonna go in here with this red, if I can find it. And I do open the twist back up. You want to be able to continue to add things to your twist once we put the ribbons in and everything. And if you just put it on top of the twist that you've already made, you're gonna run out of room, especially with this poly burlap, because it does take up a lot of room. So I've just slipped that back down into that same twist where that white one was, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it that twist and a half, because I still have more things I'm gonna put in there. And so now I'm looking, I've got a blue that's right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna grab white, I'm gonna gather it up, and you can see this goes really quickly. It's just so easy to do, and it just looks so cute. So I'm opening that twist up, I'm sliding this down in there, and you can see there's some strings that are coming up. Don't freak out about that. And then I kind of, see how that's flat? I kind of give it its natural curve. See how now it's going to the back, and you don't see that ragged edge. And now I've got these burlap ruffles that I have cut. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a burlap in here. There are no hard and fast rules here. Go ahead and tuck that under, and then tuck that red one under. Okay, so I've got a white here, and I'm going to go over that into that twist with that burlap. And you see how nice and rustic that is? That little bit of a jagged edge. I think it looks really nice. And then I've got a burlap that's already in that twist. I'm going to hit it up with a blue ruffle on top of that. And as you're doing it, like I said, you can see how it looks like it's unraveling. You've got plenty of ruffle here. Don't worry about that. You're going to need to trim it off, and it's okay. You've still got plenty of ruffle. I'm going inside on top of the burlap one that was there. And that's not the one I just did. Here's a burlap on top. This burlap is underneath the blue. And then you're going to continue on around until you have it all done. Now I'm looking here. I've got a red. There's a blue on top here. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to put another burlap on top here. And I'm just eyeballing it. I'm just seeing how it looks as far as alternating colors, because you don't want to have a heavy concentration of one color in one spot. And this one happens to have a red ruffle on the bottom. I'm going over it with a burlap. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue around, and then I'll get back in just a second and I'll show you how it all came out. Okay, now that I've gotten all of the ruffles in, and you can see it's really full, and what I ended up doing, I had cut some extra ruffles since I went ahead and added that burlap, so I had several extra ruffles. And so some of these twists will have 3 ruffles in it. The more ruffles you put in it, the fuller that it's going to be. And you can see this is a nice full wreath. It's about, I guess, you know what, I can tell you how tall it is. Looks like at its highest point it's about 5 inches thick. But now we're ready for the next layer that we're going to put in, and that's going to be our ribbons. And I've gone ahead and cut our ribbons that are going to be going on it. I cut them all about 15 inches. They may be a little bit short of 15 inches. You're going to use a lot of ribbon for these wreaths, so just be prepared to use almost a full spool of ribbon, depending on how big a spool you get. I always like to try to buy it in 10-yard ribbon spools. Most times you have to order that online. You can't really get it like that at most of the craft stores. So I encourage you to order online, because really you have much better variety and longer rolls of ribbon. But I'm going to show you the little technique that we always do on our ribbons. You can see here, and I always laugh on my videos. We talk about, well, what do we call that? Some people call it dovetailing, people call it different things. I had a viewer who told me, which is something that makes good sense, that it's a chevron. It's what it looks like. It's a chevron cut, so that's what I'm going to call it. So what you're going to do, you can do it one of two ways. You can take your length of ribbon that's almost 15 inches, fold it in half, where you meet up evenly right here, and then you're going to fold that over. So the end is folded over and folded over again. You're going to start on your folded side and cut a diagonal down. Be sure and start on the folded side, or it's not going to come out right. And you fold, you cut your diagonal like that, and there you go. You have the chevron. And you can stack them on top of each other and do two at a time, but you can't do that double fold. I don't know that your scissors are going to be thick enough, depending on the width or the thickness of your ribbon. So I'm going to do this one at a time. You can see, just easier to do them both at the same time. But if you're doing them in a stack, you're doing more than one in a stack, you can do it like this. And never how far down you come is how deep your chevron is going to be. Now, I've cut enough ribbon. I've got the red and white stripe and the stars and stripes. I've cut enough ribbon for every twist to have 2 of these ribbons. That's a ton of ribbon, but it makes a big impact. You want to have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I just kind of fold it over so I can see where my center is, because I don't want it to be lopsided. And I squeeze it, and you can determine ever how you want it to be. As a matter of fact, I want my stars and stripes on top. So that's what I'm going to do. And they're stacked on top of each other. I'm going to come over just to whatever random twist, and I'm going to open it up just like I did before. I'm going to stick where I've pinched it together into the twist, and then you can separate those ribbons. See how that is? And the more ribbons and things you have, the better things look. I've often said before that with these particular wreaths, less is not more, more is more. You want more. The more things you put in them, just the more fantastic they look. Everybody wants a full wreath. You don't want to be seeing the wreath form behind your mesh. That's another thing. Be sure that you've got your mesh in there thick enough to where you cannot see the wreath form behind it. You don't want to see through it. And then you're just going to go around your wreath, and you're going to just add these ribbons into every twist. And these are nice thick ribbons. They've got they're pretty hardy ribbons. And I'm going to continue to go around, and I'm going to do this exactly the same thing that I just have done. I'm going to put all of these ribbons into every twist, and then I've also got some other embellishments. And when we come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to put those in. You really need to have some floral wire or zip ties. I have a ton of zip ties, done tons of sizes and so forth. That's a great way to attach things to your wreath form instead of just hot gluing everything, because hot glue is not necessarily the most dependable thing in the world, so you want your things to be really sturdy. But I'm going to go ahead and go in and put my ribbons all throughout, And then when we come back, you'll see how all that's done, and then we'll start adding the rest of our embellishments, and we're almost done. Okay, now I'm down to putting the other embellishments in. You can see all of my ribbons are in each twist, 2 ribbons in each twist, 15 inches. Kind of have them separated out. You can certainly put a bow on this if you'd like. I do have a tutorial on using the Bodabra, how to make a bow with a Bodabra, which is super easy, by the way. But now I've just got these little wire picks, and I want to show you how I attach them. I use a zip tie. This is a smaller zip tie that I have, and I just come in. I've already got one in here, but it's pretty sparse. I find an open spot in the wreath, and I stick this through where it comes out the back, and I turn this around. It's kind of awkward, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And see how it's sticking through, and you can see the work wreath under here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of choose a spot. I know this is really awkward. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Take my zip tie, and I'm using a small one. You don't have to have a great big one here. I'm going to go in under the work wreath form, and it's coming through. I'm gathering up. It's going around the pick. You can see that it goes around the pick here. And I'm going to slip it through the zip tie. If you want to, can you see that really well? I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up as tight as I can get it. And then I'm going to take my wire cutters, which is another thing that you'll want to have in your crafting arsenal, is some wire cutters, and some good ones. And I'm going to cut off most of this wire pick. I want to leave a little bit that I can wrap around the wreath form just to be sure that it's in there really, really secure. And I'm going to wrap it, just my thumb. And you might need to use your pliers to kind of get in there and squeeze it to be sure that it's wrapped around really well. And you can see I've got tons of zip tie areas. Just cut those off. You can, and they leave kind of a sharp edge, so you can just spin them around. Well, I cut that one too short. There's a lesson to you. Don't cut it too short, because it slipped right out. So we're going to do it again. Up under the wire of the wreath form. I actually am zipping around, getting around a twist also, which is not the best thing. Here, let's go this way. Okay. So that pick is bent over the form. I'm going to slip that through. Come on now. Just have to be patient too. And a lot of it is trial and error. I'm going to get it as tight as I can. And I'm going to trim it not quite so short. And then you can just twist it around where it's out of the way. And you can see there's lots of, you know, what I was talking about with these little threads that are going to be sticking out. But it's the back sides, doesn't matter. The back side's great. So as you come around, you can see I've got some more embellishments added. Now I've got the big thing that I want to add, which is always, it's always dicey. It's my least favorite thing to do, but it makes a big impact. It's well worth doing, but I want to add something to the middle. Let's see here. Yeah, that's good. So you have to kind of determine, and this is pretty good because it's got a hanger on it, so you can use either floral wire or a zip tie. I'm going to get, and you can see I've got a variety of zip ties here. I've got a variety of zip ties here. And you can always move the camera down if you need to. It's okay. Let's see if I can make this work. So y'all gonna be watching from the front while I'm kind of working my magic back behind. Trying to anyway. So, first of all, you have to find a place where it looks like you can get through to the back side of your wreath, which is what I have here. And clearly that's way too low because you want it up, yeah, good and high, like that. And I am going to get this up. Of course, you have to be careful because when you pull it real tight, the top of it's going to want to go in to the center of the wreath and the bottom of it's going to stick out. So you don't want that. That's why this all gets real tricky. I'm going to see if I can't tighten this up and see how it comes out. Let's see what we got here. Coming in a little bit more. And it's unforgiving because, or it's forgiving because you've got that wire that you're working with. Hey, I think that looks pretty good, and I'll show you how it looks in the back. Here's a great big, now this is a big zip tie, and you can see the wire is inside of it, and I came up to the top, and I will definitely trim that off. And then I also have lots of other little things I'm going to determine whether or not I'm going to use. I may hot glue some of these. You know, again, you've got these that are picks, and this is wooden, so you know, I guess if you wanted to, it absolutely can go in. We would bend that back. See how that is? And then you just zip tie it to the back. And then, like I said, from the back, it doesn't matter what it looks like because nobody's going to see the back. I've got some really cute, now these I may hot glue on. They're very light, and so we may hot glue some of these on there. I'm going to work on that just a little bit, and when I get back, we'll have a finished product. Okay, there you have it. You can see not only have I added all of the ribbons, but I've also added the other embellishments that I zip tied to the back. I did go ahead and hot glue a few elements. These things are burlap, super light. I was comfortable hot gluing them on. These little wire balls I went ahead and hot glued on. Overall, it is a beautiful wreath, and it is so easy to make. You can make this in an afternoon. Just take your 10-inch deco mesh wreath. In this case, I used the poly deco mesh, poly burlap deco mesh. Cut them into 10-inch strips, and then did the ruffle technique where you gather them up in the middle, where you make the little bow ties or butterflies. I put them into every single twist, at least 2 deep. Some of them I went 3 deep. I went ahead and added some of the burlap to give it a little bit more rustic look and go with these ribbons. And you know what I'm seeing here? There's a ribbon that I missed. You see I didn't chevron this ribbon on the tail, and I'm going to do that right now because it's not right until it's done. That end. And let's see if I can get this one done while it's on the wreath. It certainly is easier to do it when it's not on the wreath, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's see. Boom! Okay, that's not super good, but it's done. There, you can do this. It is very, very easy. Just be sure you've got several tools. Have your zip ties. Have a good pair of scissors. A rotary cutter is essential if you want this to go smoothly and go easily. Just gather up embellishments. You know, I've had these little balls here since before Christmas. Keep them, you know, put them in a closet if you don't have a craft room, and bring them out. Don't just kind of pigeonhole. You think, well, I bought those for Christmas. They can be used for anything. Try to use the burlap. The burlap is a great touch. I hope that you like this patriotic themed wreath. I really, really, really encourage you to go to my website under atexassky.com. It's been totally revamped. We've got lots of home improvement projects. I just did our laundry room remodel where we used shiplap on one of the walls. We made some shelving in there with iron pipe out of the plumbing department at the hardware store, and they are fantastic. I encourage you to try this. I encourage you to try something. Even if you think you can't, you can. You can do more than you think that you can. Be sure and go to underatexassky.com. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial and that you give it a try. Have a great day, and God bless y'all.